In a galaxy that had forgotten the meaning of war, a nightmare returned from the deep past. The Forlag Swarm, a living plague of bioships that had consumed 17 civilizations. The Galactic Assembly, a council of ancient, peaceful species, saw only one solution: run. Evacuate. Surrender. It was the civilized way. It was the logical way. But when they presented this plan to their newest, most primitive members, they received an answer that defied all logic. An answer that was arrogant, insane, and utterly impossible. An answer from a species called humanity. Why would a species with only a few hundred ships declare they could defeat a 2 million-ship armada in less than 12 hours? What horrifying secrets from their own bloody history have humans turned into weapons of unimaginable power? And what will the galaxy's most enlightened species do when they are forced to watch a race of primitives win an impossible war by committing acts of warfare so terrifying they were never even imagined? The Galactic Council watched in shock. Humans won the war in 5 hours. Before our story begins, your subscription is the energy that fuels our signal. Support our mission by subscribing and activating notifications. You won't want to miss what is coming. All right, let's begin the story. Then, the council chamber of the Galactic Assembly floated in the darkness of space like a crystal jewel. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their specialized environments. Some breathed methane. Others lived in pressurized water tanks. A few existed as pure, shimmering energy contained in magnetic bottles. They had all gathered for one reason: to discuss the end of humanity. Ambassador Eva Rostova sat in the small human section, her face a mask of calm as she listened to the debates around her. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair, wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her hands rested on the desk in front of her. Not moving, not fidgeting. She simply waited. On the massive holographic display at the center of the chamber, a nightmare approached. The Forlag Swarm moved through space like a living plague. Billions of insect-like drones, each the size of a fighter, surrounded 6 enormous bioships. Each of those ships was the size of a small moon, their organic armor harder than titanium, pulsing with a sickly green light. Archon Valerius of the Aquarian Mandate spoke first. His species resembled large, intelligent dolphins with elegant, multi-jointed arms. His voice came through the translation system as a series of complex clicks and whistles converted into somber words. The projections are clear. Humanity's defenses will collapse in 6 weeks at most. We have seen this pattern 17 times before. The Forlag consume everything in their path. An Ethaner representative, a being of pure crystal that communicated through light patterns, shimmered next to him. 17 civilizations have fallen to the swarm. Its light pulses translated. Species with far more advanced technology than the humans. Species who have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. The humans have only been in space for 152 of their years. They are children playing with toys they barely understand. Eva listened without expression. She had heard variations of this speech many times over the past 3 days. The elder species of the galaxy loved to remind humanity how young they were, how inexperienced, how primitive. Illumini, an energy being from the Nebula Collective, floated near the ceiling, its form a soft purple glow. We should focus on evacuation. How many humans can we relocate before the swarm arrives? Which colony world should we prioritize? None of them, another voice rasped. The Forlag moved too fast. Any evacuation effort would be incomplete. Billions would die anyway. Perhaps it would be more merciful to offer humanity the chance to surrender. The swarm sometimes allows a species to join them, to become part of the hive mind. Eva felt her jaw tighten, a muscle twitching in her cheek. She kept her face neutral. These so-called advanced species were discussing humanity's extinction as if they were planning a resource allocation schedule. Archon Valerius turned his large, intelligent, sorrowful eyes toward the human section. Ambassador Rostova, does your government have a response to our proposals? Will you accept our aid in evacuating as many of your people as possible? Eva stood slowly. The chamber fell silent. She walked to the center of the speaking area, her boots clicking softly on the crystalline floor. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the vast room. We don't need 6 weeks, she said. She paused, letting the silence stretch. We'll handle the four-lag problem in under 12 hours. For a moment, nobody reacted. The translation devices hummed, ensuring every species understood the impossible words they had just heard. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. Counselors shouted in dozens of languages. The Athenar representative flashed so brightly with colors of disbelief that several species had to dim their visual sensors. Valerius raised his voice above the others. Ambassador, I understand you are under immense stress, but making such impossible claims helps no one. This is not a time for bravado or species pride. You must accept the reality of your situation. Eva's eyes were cold as she looked at him. Archon, with all due respect, it is you who does not understand the reality of the situation. She walked closer to the holographic display, her gaze fixed on the approaching swarm. My species has been fighting wars since we lived in caves and threw sharpened rocks at each other. We have had 10,000 years to perfect the art of killing. We have destroyed our own cities, poisoned entire regions of our planet, and built weapons capable of rendering our world uninhabitable. We know warfare in ways your peaceful, enlightened minds cannot possibly imagine. An older counselor from a peaceful herbivore species made a sad, bleating sound. And this is precisely why younger species are so dangerous. You think violence solves everything. No. Eva corrected, her voice sharp as glass. We know violence solves specific things, and the four-lag swarm is one of those things. She gestured to the holographic display. You have all fought the four-lag using your traditional tactics. Honorable fleet engagements, defensive lines, fortified worlds, and you have all failed. 17 times. You lost because you were fighting them like you fight each other, like civilized species having a territorial disagreement. She turned to face the assembly, her eyes sweeping over the delegates. But the four-lag aren't civilized. They aren't interested in negotiation or surrender. They exist to consume and assimilate. So you cannot fight them with the rules of civilization. Valerius's fins flattened against his body, a sign of deep agitation. What are you suggesting, Ambassador? That we have been preparing for this day since the moment we joined your assembly. Since the day we first heard your ghost stories about the unstoppable four-lag. While you were lecturing us about proper fleet formations and defensive protocols, we were studying what actually matters. We learned from your mistakes. All 17 of them. A junior counselor from a bird-like species chirped nervously. You cannot possibly defeat a force that has destroyed civilizations millions of years older than yours. Eva smiled, and there was absolutely no warmth in it. It was a predator's smile. Watch us, she said. She returned to her seat as the chamber dissolved into argument again. Some demanded she be censured for her arrogance and for wasting their time. Others seemed morbidly curious, content to watch the primitives get what they deserved. On the holographic display, the four-lag swarm crossed the officially demarcated line into human-controlled space. The exact moment was recorded by dozens of Concord sensors. 3 billion drones. 6 planet-killer bioships. Their destination was clear. New Perth, a human colony on Kepler 186f with a population of 2.4 million people. The display showed no human military response. No fleet moved to intercept. No defensive perimeter formed. The colonists on New Perth were going about their normal lives, their city lights twinkling, completely unaware that death was accelerating toward them. Archon Valerius made a sound of profound distress. They're not even defending themselves. The colony will be consumed within hours. They are sacrificing their own people. But Eva Rostova sat calmly in her seat, watching a small timer on her personal display. It showed the elapsed time since the four-lag entered human space. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 37 seconds. She thought about the secret facilities on Luna, the hidden weapons platforms throughout the Sol system, the teams of military strategists, psychologists, and xenobiologists who had been planning this moment for decades. Humanity had learned many things from the elder species. Faster than light travel, energy shields, genetic engineering. But more importantly, humanity had learned what not to do. The Galactic Assembly watched their displays, expecting to witness the swift, brutal extinction of a foolish, arrogant species. They had no idea they were about to witness something far more disturbing. A species that had turned warfare into a science and had elevated war crimes into a military doctrine. Eva checked her timer again. 4 minutes had passed. The four-lag swarm was accelerating toward New Perth, confident in its inevitable victory. She allowed herself a small, grim smile. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The bait was in the water. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. 47 minutes after the four-lag swarm entered human space, New Perth's star flickered. It was a small change, barely noticeable to a casual observer, but every sensor in the galactic assembly chamber registered it immediately. Archon Valerius's fins stood straight up in alarm. What was that? Did something just happen to the star? The assembly scientists worked frantically, analyzing the data. When the lead Delphinian scientist looked up from his console, his face, or what passed for one, showed pure, unadulterated shock. Someone has detonated a series of fusion devices inside the star's outer corona. The energy release, it has triggered a massive, directed solar flare. The chamber filled with gasps and exclamations of disbelief. On the holographic display, they watched as a colossal wave of fire and radiation erupted from the star, rushing outward on a precise, narrow trajectory aimed directly at the approaching four-lag swarm. The Ethaner representative flashed in agitation. That's impossible. No species can detonate weapons inside a star. The heat would destroy any device before it could function. Unless, Eva said quietly from her seat, you use weapons specifically designed to survive that heat for exactly 1.7 seconds. Just long enough to trigger the chain reaction you need. She stood and walked back to the center of the chamber. We call them stellar mines. We've had them deployed in carefully calculated orbits around New Perth star for 6 years, waiting for this exact alignment. The radiation wave hit the four-lag swarm like a physical hammer. The drone's organic armor, evolved to resist the cold of space and conventional energy weapons, held. But something else happened. The biological, quantum-entangled communication between the drones and the hive mind went completely silent. On the tactical display, the four-lag swarm's perfect, geometric formation lost all coordination. Individual drones continued moving forward on inertia, but the hive mind had gone temporarily blind and deaf. 8 minutes, Eva said, watching her timer. The radiation interferes with their biological communication frequencies for exactly 8.3 minutes. We tested this on captured four-lag scouts 15 years ago. We have known about this weakness longer than most of you have known about us. Before any counselor could respond, the human fleet struck. They came from behind New Perth, where they had been hiding in the planet's sensor shadow. But these weren't traditional warships. The fleet consisted of millions of small, fast drones, each one about the size of a ground car. Archon Valerius stared at the display. Those are too small to carry effective weapons. What are they doing? They aren't carrying weapons, Eva explained. They're carrying communication hacks. While the four-lag can't hear their own hive mind, our drones are connecting directly to individual four-lag ships and uploading new instructions. Illumini pulsed with confusion. You can't hack organic systems. The four-lag are biological, not mechanical. Everything that processes information can be hacked if you understand its language, Eva said. The four-lag communicate through modulated bioelectric signals. We captured some of their scouts decades ago and spent years learning how they think, how they process commands. We can speak their language now. We can give them orders. On the display, roughly 30% of the forward four-lag drones suddenly turned on their own fleet. They attacked the nearest bioship with the same mindless, suicidal efficiency they used to attack everything else. Chaos erupted through the swarm as the hive mind reconnected, only to find a third of its forces no longer responding to its commands and actively attacking its core vessels. The assembly chamber was completely silent. Every species watched as humanity's deeply unethical, brutally effective tactics tore the four-lag formation apart. An elderly counselor from a peaceful species finally spoke, his voice shaking. You weaponized a star. You hacked into living creatures and turned them against their own kind. What kind of species thinks like this? Eva turned to face him directly. The kind that's been fighting itself for 10,000 years. We've had chemical warfare, biological warfare, nuclear warfare, and cyber warfare. We fought in every environment our planet offers, using every tool we could imagine. We know how to turn anything into a weapon, because we've had to. She gestured to the display. You all fought the four-lag with honor. You lost because you were fighting fair. Humanity learned a long time ago that fair fights are for sports and games. Real wars are won by cheating better than your enemy. But the ethics? Valerius protested. The moral implications of such tactics. We are alive to debate ethics because we use these tactics, Eva replied coldly. The 17 civilizations the Forelag consumed were probably more ethical than us. They were definitely more honorable. They are also extinct. On the display, the Forelag swarm began to reorganize. The hive mind was adapting, ruthlessly cutting off the compromised drones and reforming its lines. Then, the assembly sensors screamed new warnings. More Forelag ships were emerging from hyperspace. Many more. 3 additional planet-killer bioships appeared, each one larger than the first 6. They were accompanied by 15 billion additional drones. The assembly chamber erupted in panic. It's over, Valerius said, his voice hollow. Even with your tactics, you cannot fight that. Those are their reserves. You've made them angry. They're going to bypass the colony and destroy Earth itself now. The new, massive Forelag fleet ignored New Perth completely. They had a new target. Their destination was clear. Earth, humanity's home world. Eva checked her timer. 2 hours and 51 minutes. She looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet heading for Earth, and she smiled. Right on schedule, she said. Valerius turned to her in disbelief. Schedule? You planned for this. Of course, Eva said calmly. The Forelag are predictable. They are a hive mind, which means they think in specific, instinctual patterns. When you hurt them, they respond with overwhelming force against what they perceive as your most valuable target. They did the same thing to the Delphinians 1,000 years ago. They did it to the Ethaner. They do it to everyone. She walked back to her seat. We studied all your encounters with the Forelag. Every battle, every defeat. We built psychological profiles of how the hive mind thinks and reacts. Then we created a situation designed to trigger this exact response. We made them angry at New Perth so they would commit their entire reserve force against Earth. But why? An Ethaner asked, flashing in confusion. Why would you want them to attack your home world? Eva sat down and folded her hands on her desk. Because Earth isn't just our home, she said, her voice dropping to a deadly quiet. It's the most heavily defended location in human space. And we've spent 80 years preparing it for exactly this attack. The trap had never been at New Perth. That colony was just the bait. And now, the enemy was rushing headlong into the real kill zone. The Forelag swarm approached Earth like a tidal wave of death. The hive mind, controlling them all, was ancient and experienced. It had consumed civilizations for 4,000 years. It had learned to recognize every defensive tactic, every weapon system. But as it entered the space around Earth's moon, the hive mind encountered something it had never experienced before. Confusion. It reached out to coordinate its forces. It expected to find the simple, predictable patterns of prey. Instead, something reached back. Human hackers, their minds enhanced with quantum computing interfaces, were inside the Forelag network. But they weren't just disrupting the communication. They were flooding it with information. Data the hive mind couldn't ignore. Images poured into the Forelag consciousness. Pictures of human history. Not the peaceful parts. Only the violence. The Forelag saw humans fighting with bronze swords. It saw chemical weapons in muddy trenches. It watched nuclear weapons vaporize entire cities. It witnessed biological plagues designed by humans to kill other humans. 10,000 years of warfare. Billions of dead. All documented. All studied. All learned from. In the assembly chamber, the Ethaner xenopsychologist was the first to understand. They're not fighting a military battle, she flashed. They're conducting psychological warfare against the hive mind. They're trying to make it feel fear. Can the Forelag even experience fear? Valerius asked. The hive mind has a self-preservation instinct, the psychologist explained. And it's encountering something it's never seen before. Not prey. It's seeing what it is. An apex predator. It is seeing a reflection of itself. On the display, several of the smaller Forelag bioships suddenly changed course and jumped to hyperspace, fleeing. The assembly chamber fell silent. No one had ever seen the Forelag retreat before. The Forelag evolved to consume other species. Eva explained from her seat. They're hunters. But humans, we're persistence hunters. We're pack predators. were the species that hunted megafauna to extinction with nothing but sharp sticks. We understand both sides of the hunt. The psychological attack had made the hive mind cautious, but not defeated. The remaining bioships tightened their formation. 15 billion drones launched, a cloud of death accelerating toward Earth. Then Earth's moon opened. Massive hangar doors slid apart across Luna's surface. Thousands of them, perfectly hidden. From each hangar, enormous mirror arrays deployed, unfolding in space like metallic flowers. Within seconds, the mirrors aligned. They caught the light from Earth's sun and focused it, not into a single beam, into hundreds of precisely calculated streams of concentrated solar radiation. But they weren't targeting the Forlag ships. They were heating specific points in the empty space in front of the swarm. They're weaponizing their own star, Valerius whispered in horror, creating plasma walls in space. The lead bioship hit the first plasma barrier at a significant fraction of light speed. The organic armor that had protected it for millennia evaporated instantly. The ship's outer layers boiled away. The other two bioships tried to alter course, but the plasma barriers were in a grid. There was nowhere to go. All three planet-killer bioships died screaming into the void. But the 15 billion drones were smaller. They flowed around the plasma barriers like water around rocks. They were still coming. At 3 hours and 47 minutes into the war, every human ship broadcast a single word. A word in the Forlag's own bioelectric language. The word was, eat. The space between Luna and Earth erupted with a faint, shimmering light. The Forlag drones began to dissolve. Their organic armor broke apart at the molecular level. Their bodies came apart like sandcastles in a wave. The Delphinian xenobiologist made a sound of pure terror. That's a Grey Goose scenario. A Drexler cascade. That's a doomsday weapon. Eva stood and faced the horrified council. We seeded this entire orbital space with self-replicating nanomachines. They have one instruction. Disassemble any carbon-based matter they encounter that does not have a specific Terran chemical marker. Those machines will consume everything, an Ethaner flashed. They'll destroy your planet. No, Eva corrected. Each nanomachine has a built-in replication limit, and they are programmed to go inert when they encounter anything from Earth. We've been testing this system for 30 years. You built a doomsday weapon, Valerius whispered. You risked a Grey Goose scenario that could have sterilized your entire system. Eva's expression was cold. Then we would have died. But the Forlag would have died first. And that is what matters. You need to understand something about humanity, Archon. We are not afraid of mutually assured destruction. We lived with it pointed at ourselves for generations. We will accept the risk of our own extinction, if the alternative is to surrender our home. On the display, the last Forlag drone Dis-Sol. Vet into atoms. The nanomachine swarm, having consumed all available Forlag matter, went inert. A harmless cloud of dust. The assembly chamber was completely silent. The war was over in 4 hours and 58 minutes. One damaged Forlag bioship remained near Neptune. A single, unarmed human corvette approached it. Ambassador Rostova's image was broadcast to the hive mind. You have two choices, she said. Die here, or retreat beyond the galactic rim and never return. If you choose life, you will tell every species you encounter that humanity is not prey. The Forlag, terrified by a species that would use such weapons, fled the galaxy. The assembly chamber erupted. Not with cheers, with fury. This is unacceptable. Illumini pulsed. Humanity has deployed weapons of mass destruction. They have violated the sapient technology accords. They have shown themselves to be too dangerous, an Ethaner flashed. We must take action. Sanctions. A trade embargo. Eva let them argue for exactly 11 minutes. Then she stood, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. We have just eliminated, in under 5 hours, a threat that has terrified this galaxy for 4,000 years. We did it with minimal human casualties and 0 civilian deaths. She walked slowly around the chamber. We used horrifying weapons. We built those weapons because when we joined this assembly, we asked a simple question. How do we defend ourselves against the Forlag? And you, all of you, told us we couldn't. You told us to hope they didn't find us. You told us to pray. She stopped and faced them. We didn't pray. We didn't hope. We prepared. We took the worst qualities of our species, our violence, our paranoia, our absolute refusal to surrender, and we turned them into weapons. You are all horrified by what we did. Good. You should be. An elderly counselor spoke softly. You've crossed lines that should never be crossed. How can we trust you not to use those weapons on us? Eva's expression softened slightly. Because we don't want to. We built these weapons for survival, not conquest. But here is what you need to understand. We are not going to dismantle our defenses. We are not going to let you inspect our military facilities. We are not going to accept sanctions or embargoes. You can't refuse assembly mandates. Valerius protested. Then maybe the assembly needs to change, Eva replied. Because we just proved that your entire military doctrine is obsolete. We just proved that your understanding of warfare is wrong. The Forlag are gone, but there are other threats out there. You need us far more than we need you. That's not a threat. That's reality. She walked back to her seat. You called us young, arrogant, ignorant. You were wrong. We are an old species that has been fighting since we lived in caves. We just happen to be new to space. We brought 10,000 years of warfare with us when we reached for the stars. She sat down and folded her hands. The galaxy needs to understand something. Humanity doesn't hope for peace. We don't pray for it. We enforce it through strength, preparation, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary. She looked directly at the assembly members. And if you are very, very lucky, you will never see what we're truly capable of when we feel genuinely threatened. Today was us being careful. Today was us showing restraint. The Forlag only got to see humanity being merciful. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Every species in the chamber was recalculating their relationship with humanity. Some with fear, some with respect. All of them with a newfound understanding of what it meant to be human.